Hello and welcome to PowerÄgg. For this Power BI tutorial, we'll be looking at field parameters. I've built a Power BI report with all the field parameter use cases I could come up with, and I'm going to show you how they work in detail for each section of this video. You can find the PBIX file in the GitHub repository, and you can find the link to the GitHub repository in the video description below. As always, make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with the latest video tutorials I'll be uploading to YouTube. Thank you very much for tuning in. So let's have a look at what solution we'll be going to build this time. All right, so we are in Power BI, and the first thing we can see is my landing page. This is a pretty basic landing page. I designed it using PowerPoint, at least the background, and this right here is a page navigation visual. So we can see that the first page we have is the row level security and object level security we're going to talk about together with field parameters. Next, we have conditional fields, where we're using field formatting with field parameters and row level security to decide on what kind of date format is shown to what kind of user group, for example. Next, we have field parameters working together with filters and bookmarks to choose what kind of filter context we have on a scatter graph, on a scatter chart. And then we have hierarchies within field parameters. So we're going to build hierarchies within field parameters and see how that works. Then we have the self-service solution. I've already made a video on the self-service solution, but I'm going to cover it again because it is definitely part of the field parameters use cases. And finally, we have some conditional formatting for field parameters, and we're going to have a look at how to conditionally format each field parameters if we have, for example, a matrix. Okay, so we are on the first page of the report, and this is row level security, object level security, and field parameters working together. So let's have a look at how this works. So the idea of this page is that we are using row level security together with field parameters to select what kind of columns or fields we want to show to a user and not. For example, we have here decided that we have a role as a Germany user, and the Germany user is not supposed to see the field color. Then we also have row level security for the country Germany, so that the Germany user is also only supposed to be seeing Germany. This has nothing to do with field parameters, but we implemented it nonetheless. And then finally, we've also used object level security for the field colors, so that the user does not have access to the underlying data should the user have someone share the page with them, any page that contains color data, for example. So let's have a look at how this works. If we choose the German user and we click OK, we should not see color, perfect, and we should only see the Germany and online data, perfect. So if we go back and we choose the power user, we should be able to see everything again. And that's pretty much it for row level security and object level security. After the introduction, I'm going to show you how this works and how to build this. All right, and for the next solution, we'll be looking at field parameters and conditional fields. And the idea behind this is that using row level security with field parameters for fields that have the same value as date, but formatted differently, that the user who logs in as Germany only sees the date in the actual German date format, but a user from the USA is going to see a different date format. And this is the same concept as before. We use row level security to do this with field parameters together. But for example, if we click here on the Germany user, we only see the German date format. And if we go back and we click American user, so USA user, we can see the date format in the we can see the date in a different format. And this solution could be used also for translating fields or something. If you're gonna have a lot of columns, it might not be the best solution, but it's a solution that works. You can translate fields, you can format different fields. You're gonna have to duplicate the fields every time, and you're gonna have to set up row level security, but it works nonetheless. Then we will be looking at bookmarks and field parameters. So what I've done here is I've created a filter that's filtering the parameter. So we have the field parameter slicer here. And if we choose filter 1, the bookmark is only selecting categories. So we have product category, and we can also see the context and the scatter plot here that it is product category. So we have the size as sales, then we have quantity and profit margin on the axis. But if we choose filter 2, So let's click on filter 2. We can see the same data, but in the context has changed, and we can now see it by customer country. And you can do this to, we are using the same filter, so we are just changing the context of the filter, and we are choosing the context. And we're doing this using a page filter, bookmarks, and field parameters. Up next, we have the hierarchies within field parameters. So we're using the field parameters table that Power BI creates when we add new field parameters, and we are adding 2 new columns. The first column is the actual category, so the name of the field. So we have the product brand, the product category, for example, and the product color. But then we created another level on top of that, which is the actual field context. So for example, we have product, or we have region, and we also added an icon just for fun to it as well. We basically built a little hierarchy within the field parameters. So for example, here we have customer country, and we can see here the hierarchy in the matrix visual. So we see first the region, then within region we are in customer country, then we see the customer countries, and we can do the same. We can go to product category, and then we see the product category, and then we see the amounts by the product category. And then we have the SelfService Solution, which I've covered already. So here we have field parameters for the rows, the columns, and the measures within the actual visual itself. So basically what this measures, I'm just going to quickly correct this. So what this does is it allows us to dynamically select what columns what rows we want to have. So for example, if I just want to see the color as a row, and I don't want I want only the measures, so I want to have multiple measures as columns, but I can also change this context completely. So this is what I mean by self-service. So we can choose the total cost, and then we can decide, instead of having none, we actually want to see it by country, or for example by brand. Then we can see it by brand, and we now have the sales amount by brand and color. And then again, we can just select none if we don't want any columns, and if we want to see instead all of the measures, then we can have all the measures. And this is what I consider self-service, because basically the user here can select, can build their own matrix in a sense. Finally, I was wondering how to do conditional formatting, so I decided to share this within field parameters. So within field parameters, I'm going to show you later that we have to select each and every field and use conditional formatting, but I can show you here that I have conditional formatting with field parameters, and you can just dynamically change the fields that you want as before, and we have the conditional formatting within. All right, that was it for the introduction. So let's have a look at how we can actually build these solutions. Let's get started with row level security, object level security, and field parameters working together. Great, so we are in Power BI. So the first thing we need to do to implement our solution for row level security, object level security, and field parameters is to add our field parameters. So let's go ahead and go to the modeling tab, and let's click new field parameters or new parameters, and then let's click fields. And then we will want to unselect the slicer added to this page box. I want to rename this parameter. Let's call it field parameters. Pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and add our parameters as we need them. So this would be our customer country. So let's go ahead and select customer country. So we have country. Then we go ahead and open up product. Then we add our brand, our product category, and finally our product color. So these are enough field parameters for this value. However, we need to also add another field which is called none. We're going to need this for later. And the field none is a measure which simply says none equals blank. And the reason we have this is for later we are able to select none as a column, for example, in a dynamic matrix. I'm going to show you again this later. But we can add this none field as a filter selection for the field parameters, so that later we can unselect field parameters if we want. So let's just go ahead and add none for now. Let's click create. And we should already see our field parameters table. Perfect. So let's go ahead and select the empty table that we have. And let's select field parameters. And we should be able to see all the column titles. Perfect. So we have none, country, brand, category, and color. So let's go ahead and add our measure. This would be KPI profit margin in this case. And we should be able to see all the data. Perfect. So let's go ahead and go to our field parameters. Add a filter to this page. Let's select all and unselect none so we don't see the none column. Perfect. This is the first step of implementing the solution. So now what we have to do is to create our role level security. So we have to create our roles. So let's go ahead and click on modeling again, then on manage roles, and we have to create a new role, which would be the Germany user. And for the Germany user, we have the following settings. We have to go to customer, Contoso customer, and select that country is not equal or is equal to Germany. Perfect. And now comes the interesting parts, because we have our field parameters. And we have a look at what the name of our field is. It is called field parameters. So let's go ahead and add the field called field parameters. And all we have to do is say that it is not equal to color. And this way the German user should not be able to see color. Let's verify this. Let's create another role for the power user. So we can go back and we will simply add no filters. Okay, perfect. So we have customer, country, and we have field parameters filtered. So this user should not see the color column and should only see Germany data. Let's click as save. And let's test the solution by clicking on view as and then Germany user. And perfect, we don't see the color column and we only see Germany data. So let's go ahead back and click none. Click OK. And now we have a final step for security, because theoretically we don't want the German user to see the color column, but he or she could still access the color column from the product table. And this is a security problem that we still have nonetheless, because we only have role level security on the field parameter, which doesn't mean we have object level security on the underlying field. So what we have to do is we have to go to Tabular Editor. So we go to External Tools, open up Tabular Editor. Then we pop open tables. We go to Product. We open up Product. We go to the color column and we scroll down until we see object level security. If you do not see object level security here, this is probably because you don't have any role level security implemented yet. So you first need to create your roles before you do this. Open up object level security, go to the German user and select none. Let's click save to the model. Let's close this up. Okay, let's test the solution. Let's test the solution again as before. We go to modeling, we click view as, and we go to Germany user. Perfect, this works. So let's see what happens if we now add the color column from the product table. We should get an error if the Germany user. So let's first click on power user to see that nothing happens. Perfect. And now let's go to Germany user and we should get an error message because object level security is kicking in. Perfect, we see the error message. So if we go to the visualization and we click delete color, we will now see the solution working with object level security and role level security and field parameters. One final thing you should know about object level security is that any related fields, for example, calculations, such as a measure, related to any field, for example, color that has object level security in it, will be broken for the user trying to view it. So for example, if we have the German user and we would now have a measure that is filtering the color to a certain color, that measure will be broken if it is in the visual. And a way to avoid this would be to add the measure as a field parameter as well, and to have row level security on that measure on top. Conditionally showing fields with field parameters and row level security. Next up, we have conditional fields and field parameters. So let's see how this works. The first thing we have to do is to add our date column. So let's add date. Let's make sure this date is not a hierarchy, but an actual date, so we can see the formatting. Okay, we can see it is in a German format. And let's add our measure as well. Again, we will just add KPI profit margin. Okay, perfect. So what we have to do now is to add another date field. So we have to add a new column. Click new column and click date and write date USA just for the purpose of this video, and is equal to date. Now we will select, oops, IntelliSense is not kicking in, so I'm gonna press enter. I'm gonna write it again. Date. Okay, now it is kicking in. So let's scroll up and let's select the Contoso date field. And we press enter. So this is nothing than a carbon copy of the date USA field. And what we will do now is to format it differently. So we go to format, we go down, 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 and we select the US, yes, this one, date format. Okay, so let's add this field as well to the table. Let's put it next to date. Let's put in date USA. Okay, so now what we have to do is again to create our roles so that we can use row level security. So we go to modeling, manage roles. I create a new role that is USA user. And we have to go to our date column. Sorry, my bad. Let's just click save. We first have to create our field parameters. I did a mistake, so let's go ahead and go to modeling, new parameter, field parameter. And we have to first create our date, field parameters, field parameter. Again, let's uncheck the slicer added to this page box. Let's go to our date field, our date table, and add date and date USA. That's all we need. Let's click create. This should create our date table parameter. Perfect. And let's delete date and date USA from the table. Let's add the field parameter. Perfect. This adds the two dates. And now we have to do row level security on that field parameter so that we see the right one. So let's click manage roles again. We have USA user and we go to date field parameters. And we write the name of the field in brackets. So this is called date field parameter and equals to date USA. Oops, and I forgot the bracket at the end. Wrong bracket. Okay, let's verify this. And the column date field cannot be found because it's used in this expression. Okay. Okay, I'm missing an S after field parameters, so that's date field parameters. Okay, now this works. So let's go to the Germany user. And for the Germany user, let's add an expression. And let's also name this date field. This has to be spelled correctly. And there's no IntelliSense, so it could be a bit tricky. And then this time it is equal to date, right? So we want, again, let's just go through this. The USA user, we created a field parameter for date and date USA. Then we added this date field parameter to our row level security, and we said that for this field parameter, the field should only be equal to date USA for the date field. And then we did the same thing for the German user, except that for the German user, we said that it is equal to date. So we have the date in the right format. Let's click Save. And let's test the solution. So let's go on View As. Let's try the Germany user. Perfect. And we only see date, as you can see. So let me close this up. Okay, nice. So we can only see date. Now if I go on View As, and I should select USA user, we should see the date in the US format. Perfect. And this is so if you have rollover security, or if you have different user groups in different countries, and you have to format things differently, this could be a way to go for. So you just have to add some rollover security, add field parameters for all the different fields that are formatted differently. It is a bit tedious, but it does work. Bookmarks, filters, and field parameters. Great, wonderful. So the next step is bookmarks, filters, and field parameters. So let's see what we have to do here. We have the first thing already. We have 4 different filter fields. So these are blank buttons. So let me go in the selection, and you can see that here I have filter 1 selected, then I have filter, so let me hide this, and then we have filter 1 selected, unselected, which is just the blank button. So we have the button, and then we have the selected button, which is the button, but with an actual fill, so we can see which one is selected. And we have the same thing for filter 2, so we're going to create bookmarks, which only shows filter 1 and filter 2 with some filter settings. We will have a look at that in a second. So the first thing we need to do is to add our field parameters. So let's select the slicer we have. Let's go ahead and open up field parameters, and let's add the field parameters to the slicer. Perfect. So let's have a look. And we can see we have none, country, brand, category, color, etc. So let's go ahead and open our filters. So we have our filters open. Let's drag and drop the field parameter filter field to the page filter. Let's click country, because the first context we want is the customer country. Let's click country. Okay, and we should only see country. Perfect. Let's do the same thing for the scatter plot. So let's add country to the values, the field parameter. Okay, so we have country. Perfect. It automatically will show the value of the field, and then we need our measures. So we have sorry, my bad. We have profit margin on the y-axis, on the x-axis. Perfect. Quantity on the y-axis, and total cost as the size. And perfect, we see all the data for country. So now we have a little problem because we are missing a slicer title. So let's have a look at what we can do. We can either write out a title, but we can also do something very cool. We can go into field parameters, and then we can create a dynamic title, measure title. So all we have to do is go in here, hit comma, add another column, which is repeating the name of the other column. So let's go ahead and do this again for the next one. And this one we want to call it customer country. So we are creating a name for the field, or if you would like, a field detail category for the name. Let's go ahead and do this again for the other one. We have product brand, and again for the next one, comma, product category. Let's do the same thing for the color, product, oops, I forgot my comma, product color. And you do need those quotation marks as well. Okay, so let's hit enter, and this should create another column for us, which is called value. Perfect. So now we need a measure. Let's click new measure, and let's call this slicer title field parameter. And all we have to do is use the selected value. Oops, let me format this correctly. Selected value, and then all we need is value 4, and then we close the bracket and we hit enter. And let's add this slicer measure to our title. So we are again in the filter. Let's click FX for function, for title function. Let's search title. We search title. We click OK. And we should now see customer country. Perfect. So the next thing we want to do is we want to actually see our country values. So let's go back to our formatting. And we can see that in the fields, we have the field parameters. So what we want to do to see the values is we have to click the drop down. And we have to click show values of selected field to be able to see the actual values. Let's click that and we should be able to see all the countries. Perfect. We can either select all or we can now select a specific country and it will filter to that country. Perfect. So let's create our dynamic filter. So all we have to do now is create a bookmark. So let's go ahead and open up the Bookmarks pane. Let's click add. So we already have country selected, so that's perfect. Let's call this country. And we want the data selected on this visual because we want to change the data. And then let's unselect country and let's go to product category. And you can see that the context changes. And now we have to hide. We have to show that the right filters are shown. So we had to hide the filter 1 selected, unhide the filter 1 unselected, and we're showing the filter 2 selected and hiding the filter 2 unselected. And let's add this and call this product category. Okay, perfect. And now we need to create an action. So let's close this up so we can see this a little bit better. If I click filter 1, I want an action. So let's go ahead and click filter 1. Perfect. We create an action and I want a bookmark. Okay. And sorry, sometimes this bugs a little bit. Okay, so filter 1, and let's add a bookmark, and we want the country for filter 1. So let's now control click filter 1 to see if it works. Perfect. And for filter 2, we want the same thing except a different bookmark. We want action and we want product category. So let's test the solution. If the user clicks filter 2, we should see the context for product category. Perfect. And we can choose the product category from the drop down field. And if you choose filter 1, we should be able to see customer country. And we are all staying in the same filter, so we didn't have to create a second visual, a second filter. So this is a great solution for having single visuals, but have them dynamic using field parameters and bookmarks. Hierarchies within field parameters. Good. So for our actual hierarchies within field parameters, we already did something which helped. So let's click on the field parameters table. You have to make sure you click on the table to open up the actual script. So let's go ahead and click into this column. So we have none already. And let's open this up and select none as a category. So what we have now is we have our field. And then we have our field name as a column, which is called value 4, which we can see here at the bottom. What we want now is value 5, which is a category on top of value 4, which is higher level. And we're going to categorize our fields using also a unichar symbol. So the first one we have is none. None is in the category none. However, product brand, product category, and product color are all within the product family. So I'm just gonna click and paste this. This is a unichar symbol. So this is a little teddy bear, which is supposed to resemble a product category. And we do the same thing for the rest. So we are just concatenating the symbol with a space, and then we're writing the product text. And we do the same thing here. And now we need to do a similar thing for the country. And we want to categorize this as region. So we hit comma, we paste this, and this is now region. So you have to make sure that every field, every row on this little table we are creating has the same number of columns, otherwise this won't work. So let's hit enter. Perfect, and we now have a little matrix. So let's now see how this looks. So let's add the field parameter as a row. We should be able to see the field parameter. Okay, perfect. And let's go to the slicer. And let's add the field parameter. Okay, none, perfect. And now, oops, sorry, my bad. I don't want field parameter. I actually want the top value. So I want level 5. So this should be none, region, and product. And under this one, we put level 4, which we created, which is the field name. So we should now see a hierarchy between product, perfect, product and region. And now we see a hierarchy. So if we select one, we should be able to see the product value at the bottom. So to see the hierarchy itself, let's add value 5 and value 4 and create a little hierarchy. And let's open this up all the way and again, so that we see the hierarchy every time. So now we have a little problem because we can see in the slicer it says value 5 and value 4 in the selected fields. A way to avoid this possibly could be to have two slicers. So let me just try this. Let me add a second slicer and let's format this right. Let's put this up a little bit so that it looks decent. And in here we only have level 5, and in here we have level 4. With single select, so we can see here we have product and product brand. Now the problem is if we have single select here, that it will not show all the values for the level above it. So if select all, then we can see the levels above it again. We can click region, and now someone can select a specific region. However, this is not the best solution. I prefer the actual hierarchy with a single select. So if we click product, we should be able to choose the actual level on the product. For example, product category, and then we can see it. Now you don't see the actual value error. However, the slicers are not working perfectly. So I haven't figured out yet a perfect solution for the hierarchy yet, but it works and we can build hierarchies nonetheless. Right, next we have what I call a self-service solution using field parameters. All right, and now we have our self-service solution. So this is pretty straightforward. This is the most common use of field parameters in my opinion, because we are simply giving the user the ability to create their own matrix. So they would be able to choose the columns, the rows, and also the measures. So let's create our columns first because we already have them. Let's select field parameters here. And we can see here that we have none, brand, country, category, and so on. And let's also add this to our columns field in the matrix. Perfect. Now we need our rows and our measures. And to do this, we have to go to modeling again and create some new field parameters. So let's click ahead. Let's go ahead and click on field parameters. Let's call this rows. And we don't want a slicer. So let's again go to the Contoso store, the country, and we will rename this to store country. Why not? To make this more clear, because we also will have customer country. So let's go ahead and select customer country. Customer country as well as a row, and then we want some product data, so let's go ahead and select product, and we want the brand, the category, and the color, and this should be enough for our rows. So let's click create. I didn't have none this time because I don't want none, so let's add this quickly to our first slicer. So let's select the first slicer, let's go to rows and select rows, add it to the field, and let's go to the matrix and also select rows and add it to the rows, and we should be able to see the rows. Perfect. So now we have all selected. So if we go to store country, we should only see store country, and then here we have country as well. So we have country over country. That doesn't really make sense. Let's go ahead and select product category instead. And now you can see that for the columns we have none selected because we are now going to add our measures. So let's go ahead and go on modeling, manage, oh sorry, my bad, wrong click, field parameters. Let's call this measures in brackets FP for field parameters. Let's go ahead and add all our measures. So we want profit margin, quantity, total cost, and that's enough, that's fine. We don't want the slicer for the page. Click create. And then we could go to the slicer and we add the measures to our slicer. So we have all the measures. Then we also add our measures to the values. Okay, great. So now you can see that for the columns, we also have all the 3 measures broken down for each column. This creates a very long matrix, okay? So to avoid this, this is why we have none. If we select none, we're not going to have any columns. We're only going to see our measures, all right? If we want a column and we want to see our measures by country, or sorry, yeah, by country, and we want to see only profit margin by country, we simply click on profit margin, and we now have a perfect self-service matrix where the user can select and unselect whatever they want. And finally, we have field parameters and conditional formatting. So for the last and final step, let's see how we can conditionally format field parameters, basically measures if we have them. So let's, on the first slicer, select all our measures for our field parameters. On the second slicer, let's add our field parameters, and at the bottom table, let's add the field parameters and the measures. Okay, perfect. So we see none, etc., etc., etc. So what we want to do is for the page, we don't want none. So let's click and drag and drop the filter for field parameters and unselect none, so we don't see none. Perfect. And now I can see all the measures. So we want to format the measures. So either we can click on all and we see all the measures in the formatting. So we have to go to format, then we have to go to cell elements, and then we have to, for every single measure or field, if you want, we have to format them. So for example, if you want profit margin, we want a icon, and we only want positive and negative. We're going to put this to 100%. We're going to say it's up, and otherwise we're going to say it's down. So we only have up and down. That's fine. We can see everything is up except some of them are down. That's pretty straightforward. And we can do the same thing for quantity. For example, for quantity, we want an icon. We can add a little icon. We can say that, for example, here we only have 1 box. Maybe here we have 3 boxes. Click OK. And total cost, we just add a background color. That's fine. Just a darker one. Okay, perfect. And now if we go ahead and select a measure, it will be formatted. We can do the same thing for another measure. So this is pretty simple. All we have to do is click on the table, go to the Format Your Visual tab, go to Cell Elements, and then for each and every measure, we have to format it separately. And it will save it. So if we don't have any, it will select all of them. If we select one of them, it will show up. Now we can only do it for country, for example. Now we see country and profit margin. Okay, that's it for this Power BI tutorial. I hope that you enjoyed it and that it will help you with your future work. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with the latest video tutorials.